The hotel could tell you who stayed in every room except one. For more than 40 years, room 312 appeared in the building exactly where it was supposed to be. Guests walked past it. Housekeepers cleaned it. Maintenance workers repaired things inside it. Managers included it in inspections. Nothing about the room looked hidden, abandoned, or sealed away. The mystery only appeared when the hotel changed ownership. A regional hospitality company had purchased the property and ordered a full audit before approving a renovation project. The hotel was old enough that its records existed in several formats: modern databases, archived spreadsheets, handwritten ledgers, scanned receipts, and boxes of paper files stored in a basement office. Most of the audit was boring. Then one accountant noticed that room 312 had been costing the hotel money for decades. Electricity, water, cleaning supplies, furniture replacement, routine maintenance. The room behaved financially like a normal guest room. It simply had no guests. At first, nobody took the discrepancy seriously. Old hotels lose records all the time. Reservation systems get replaced. Paper files are misplaced. And entire years of data can vanish during ownership changes. But when the staff searched older archives, the same absence kept appearing. Room 311 had guests. Room 313 had guests. Every room on the third floor produced names, dates, payments, complaints, cancellations, and occasional damage reports. Room 312 produced expenses. Nothing else. The general manager eventually walked to the third floor himself. He expected to find a mundane explanation. Maybe the room had been converted into storage. Maybe it had once belonged to staff. Maybe it was unavailable for structural reasons and had simply remained listed by mistake. Instead, the door opened onto a perfectly ordinary hotel room. It was clean. Too clean, considering nobody could prove anyone had ever stayed there. The bed was made, the bathroom had fresh towels, and the climate control was running at the same temperature as the neighboring rooms. Nothing suggested neglect. Nothing suggested secrecy. That was what made the room so difficult to explain. It looked ready for someone. The first interviews only made the situation stranger. A retired maintenance supervisor recognized room 312 immediately when shown photographs. He remembered working inside it during renovations years earlier. He corrected the investigators when they misidentified the old carpet pattern. He even described where a previous desk had once stood before the furniture was replaced. His memory seemed sharp. Then management asked whether he remembered a guest. The retired worker became quiet. He said he remembered the room clearly. He remembered being sent there. He remembered the work. But every memory seemed to stop before reaching the person who had supposedly required any of it. At first, management assumed age had affected his recollection. Then, younger employees gave similar answers. Housekeeping staff remembered preparing the room. Front desk employees remembered being told that room 312 was unavailable. Maintenance workers remembered service calls. Nobody could explain who requested them. That pattern began to bother people. Hotels are built around reasons. A room gets cleaned because somebody checked out. A repair is scheduled because somebody complained. A towel is replaced because somebody used it. Room 312 had actions attached to it, but the cause of those actions remained missing. The investigation moved into operational systems. Keycard records showed activity at the room on scattered nights over several years. At first, that seemed like a breakthrough. If the lock had been opened, someone had to be responsible. The problem was that the credentials attached to those entries did not belong to any known guest or employee. The hotel replaced the lock. The new system produced similar entries within months. Technicians blamed software errors, but the hotel's security consultant found the explanation incomplete. The lock was recording activity in a format consistent with legitimate access. It was not random data. It was not a corrupted timestamp. The system appeared to believe someone had entered the room. Security footage offered little help. Hallway cameras showed staff approaching room 312 throughout the years. Housekeepers stopped outside it with carts. Maintenance employees unlocked it for inspections. Managers occasionally entered with clipboards. Those visits looked ordinary until investigators tried to match them with requests. Many had none. There was no guest complaint attached, no scheduled renovation, no documented inspection. People had been entering room 312 for years because the hotel's internal routines kept sending them there. The room had somehow trained the building to maintain it. When the story leaked online, people treated it like a ghost story at first. That was understandable. An old hotel, a mysterious room, missing records. It sounded familiar. But the details were not theatrical enough to satisfy most paranormal forums. There were no dramatic sightings, no screams from inside the walls, no doors slamming in the middle of the night. Room 312 was unsettling for a quieter reason. It behaved as if it belonged to someone who could not be found. A travel blogger eventually discovered the first photograph. It had been taken years earlier by a family staying on the third floor. The image showed two children standing in the hallway outside an elevator, smiling at the camera. Room 312 appeared in the background. The door was slightly open. At first, that was all anyone noticed. Then someone zoomed in. A dark shape seemed visible inside the room, standing several feet back from the doorway. The image was too blurry to prove anything, but the timing made it famous among people following the choice. The hotel insisted the room had been unoccupied during the family's stay. The family later found the original version of the photograph stored on an old memory card. In that copy, the doorway was closed. The discovery caused weeks of arguments online. Some accused the family of editing the image for attention. Others claimed the older file had been corrupted. Image analysts disagreed with one another, which only made the story spread further. The hotel refused to comment. That refusal became harder to maintain after another former employee came forward. She had worked night audit during the early 2000s. Her job involved reconciling the day's transactions after most guests had gone to sleep. According to her account, room 312 occasionally appeared as occupied for a few seconds during late-night system refreshes. The status would change, then disappear before she could print a report. She assumed it was a glitch. Everyone assumed that. Years later, after hearing about the audit, she realized something that disturbed her. The room never appeared available during those brief moments. It appeared checked in. Under the guest name field, the system displayed nothing readable. Not a blank space exactly. More like a string of characters that failed to render properly. She reported it once. A supervisor told her not to worry about it. The next week, the issue stopped appearing on her screen. The room itself did not change. Staff still cleaned it. Maintenance still serviced it. Management still treated it as unavailable without knowing why. Eventually, the new owners hired outside consultants to review the entire situation. Their final report was never released publicly, but several excerpts circulated online. One line became the center of discussion. Room 312 demonstrates operational continuity without identifiable occupancy. It was dry corporate language. That made it worse. The consultants were not claiming the room was haunted. They were saying that, from the hotel's perspective, room 312 functioned as if it were being used. Only the user was absent. The utility data supported that conclusion. Water consumption rose and fell in patterns similar to occupied rooms. Electricity usage increased during tourist season and dipped during slow months. Climate control adjustments appeared in the system at times when nobody from staff admitted entering. None of the numbers were extreme. That was precisely why they felt wrong. The room was not producing dramatic anomalies. It was producing ordinary behavior without an ordinary source. The strongest physical evidence came during renovation planning. Contractors opened part of a service wall behind the third-floor rooms. Near room 312, they found an old handwritten maintenance tag attached to a pipe. The tag referred to the room by number. The date was almost 30 years old. A short note had been written underneath. "Do not disturb if occupied." The phrase would not have seemed unusual anywhere else in the hotel. Inside this investigation, it became difficult to ignore. Whoever wrote that note had treated the room as if occupation were possible. The hotel's legal department tried to shut down discussion after that. Employees were instructed not to speak publicly. Online posts from staff accounts disappeared. Requests for comment received polite refusals. Room 312 remained listed internally, but guests could not book it through the website, phone reservations, or third-party travel platforms. A few people attempted to request it directly. Some were told the room was unavailable. Others were told it did not exist. One guest later claimed she received both answers from 2 different employees during the same stay. By then, the hotel had become a minor internet obsession. People visited just to walk the third-floor hallway. Most saw nothing unusual. Room 312 looked like any other door. A brass number, a keycard lock, a peephole, a small sign explaining the hotel's privacy policy. The strangeness came from how normal it appeared. One visitor described standing in front of the room and feeling disappointed at first. There was no dramatic atmosphere, no cold air, no strange sound from behind the door. Then he noticed something that bothered him more. The room had a "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging from the handle. He photographed it. The next morning, the sign was gone. The hotel said housekeeping must have removed it. That explanation would have been easy to accept if anyone had been assigned to service the room that day. The story gradually faded from mainstream attention, but it never completely disappeared. Former employees continued discussing it in private groups. Travelers continued posting hallway photographs. Amateur researchers continued comparing old reviews, booking records, and conference documents. A pattern emerged from those scattered fragments. People rarely remembered room 312 unless something prompted them. They remembered the hotel. They remembered the third floor. Some remembered walking past the door many times. But the room itself seemed to slide out of memory unless someone pointed directly at it. That idea gave the mystery a new shape. Maybe room 312 had never been hidden. Maybe the opposite was true. Maybe it had always been visible, maintained, and waiting in plain sight. The hotel still operates today. Its website shows photographs of renovated rooms, a polished lobby, and a restaurant that was added during the most recent ownership change. The third floor remains open to guests. Room 312 does not appear in public booking options. If you call the front desk and ask about it, the answer depends on who picks up. Some employees say the room is not available. Some say it is under renovation. A few reportedly pause before answering, as though checking something they expected to find, but cannot. Nobody from the hotel has ever provided a complete explanation. The simplest theory is still paperwork failure. The most disturbing theory is not that different. Room 312 may have been occupied for decades. The hotel may have known it in every practical way a hotel can know something. It cleaned the room. It powered the room. It repaired the room. It prepared the room again and again. Only one part of the system failed. The part that should have remembered who was inside. That is why the story unsettled former staff more than any ghost rumor ever could. The mystery was never whether room 312 existed. It was there. Anyone could stand in the hallway and look at the door. The real question was why a hotel spent more than 40 years preparing a room for a guest nobody could name. And why, after all that time, the room still looked ready for someone to return.